I've made over 200 Python projects, and today I'm going to share with you my favorites. Now I've got 5 projects to demo for you here, and the best part is none of these are super complicated, which means you could code them out in just a few days if you've got some experience with Python. Now I hope you take this video as inspiration, and make sure you stick around until the last project because I do have a surprise I want to share with you. But first, let me tell you about a way that you can code these projects out faster, and that's by using Bubble, the sponsor of this video and the world's first full-stack, no-code, production-grade platform. Bubble is programming. Anything that can be built with code can be built faster using Bubble. With Bubble, you have everything you need to build real-world apps from design, data, and logic. This means you can rapidly build visually captivating, robust, and responsive apps while integrating with databases and functionality like user authentication, checkout experiences, and social networking features. If you don't believe me, you can check out these full guides that walk you through building entire apps like an Instagram clone, an NFT marketplace, a budgeting app, a Udemy clone, and tons of others. You can start building your first app in a matter of minutes by working through one of these projects or by checking out these interactive lessons. Who knows, maybe you'll even end up building an entire company, going from prototype to IPO to a successful business like tons of others already have using Bubble. Bubble supports everyone from individual developers to Fortune 500 companies, and you can get started with them today by clicking the link in the description. So let's get into the demo, and I want to remind you that the projects I'm showing you here are my favorite ones, the ones I had the most fun building that I can remember today, not necessarily the most impressive ones or the ones I would put on something like a resume. These projects were really what got me into coding and got me really excited and passionate, and that's why I'm sharing them with you here. So the first one that I have is called Super Mini Golf, and this was my grade 12 final project in my computer science class. Now, the idea here was we had to make some kind of game in Python using Pygame, which to date is still my favorite module that I just love making games in. So I made a game that I used to play on my phone all the time, which was Super Stickman Golf. So I pretty much just remade this in Pygame. You can see that there's like sand traps, there's water hazards, you can shoot the ball. That was a great one there. There's some power-ups that I'll show you. This was a really hard game for me to make back when I was, how old would I have been here? 17, 18 years old. It took me a really long time, but it was one of the most fun times I've ever had. And I've shown this project to so many people, and it was something that I was really, really proud of back in the day. Alright, so I've just wrapped up the game here. You can see it didn't go so well after the first few holes that I was actually recording, but you guys get the idea here. And I also implemented like a little ball shop thing where you could purchase different colored balls and equip them. Pretty cool. So anyways, that's first game or first project. Let's go to the next one. So the next project is online multiplayer chess, and this is something I made during an 18-hour coding live stream on this channel. This is really what brought my channel to the next level. It's what got me a bunch of views, a bunch of you found me because of this game, and it's what really pushed me to keep making YouTube videos and coding. So this is one of my favorite projects of all time. It is far from polished, and if I was going to remake it today, it would be significantly better, but I still love it, and I want to show it to you guys. So it's online chess game, pretty straightforward. You can join with 2 different clients. Ignore the fonts all being off, but that's just how it was. One person is white, one person is black, and when you make a move, it will adjust on the other person. You can see we have 15-minute timers going by default. So on white here, I can make my move. Then we give it a second and we'll see the move updates on the other board. You can see the server on the bottom left-hand corner here. So here, let's make our move on black. Okay, you see it updates there. Maybe we could play the English opening, and I'll just get to a stage where we can like capture a piece so we can check that that is indeed working. Okay, so let's go here. Fun fact, this is the opening I usually play, and then let's just test this out and make sure the piece capture does actually work. You can see it does. We can capture back, and even rules like castling, all that kind of stuff is implemented in here. And yeah, it's quite fun. At one point, I actually ran a live stream where I had you guys all play this game, and I actually hosted the server like in like a real virtual private server so you guys could all connect. I don't know how well that worked. When I'm thinking back to it, I think there was quite a few bugs, but it was cool to see you guys actually on there playing my game. And yeah, this is one of the first online things I made. It was really, really fun. And now let's move on to the next project. So the next project I have for you here is a Sudoku solver. Now the first reason I remember this project so much is because I put it on my YouTube channel and so many of you guys made fun of the way that I say that word. I still don't know what the correct pronunciation is, if I'm saying it right, if you guys are wrong, so you can let me know in the comments. But the idea is you can just play a normal game of Sudoku here. So what I can do is try to pencil in a number. So let's say I think 1 goes here. I can go ahead and hit enter. And if it doesn't conflict with anything, it will let me actually put that in. Now, if I try to put another one here, you see that it actually gives me an X and tells me, hey, that's wrong. You can't actually put that number there. And then let's say I go through, maybe I pencil in a few different numbers. I think, 3 or 4 goes here, 5, 7, whatever, like a normal game. And then at some point I say, you know what, I don't want to solve this anymore. Let's have the computer do it. And I can go ahead and hit the space bar and it will automatically solve the board for me. Now it does this using a backtracking algorithm. It's really interesting how that works, and I had a lot of fun building out this project because it was super visual. It actually shows you exactly what's going on and how the computer is solving this board, and I just found it really fun, and it was something that again taught me quite a bit about algorithms. Wanted to share it with you here. If you want to check it out, I'll leave the code link to it in the description. So moving on to the next project, this one is definitely the most practical, but it requires a little bit of context to understand it. So a long time ago, I used to work at a summer camp. This was a sports camp, and we had a bunch of different groups. So maybe we'd have 200, 300 kids, and they'd be split into 7, 8 groups, etc., something along those lines, okay? Now, each of those groups would go throughout the day, and at set kind of time periods, just like school, they would go and play some kind of activities. They might do soccer, they might do lacrosse, football. It was a sports camp, so all the different groups went, and eventually throughout the week, they'd want to play, every single one of the different activities that existed, and sometimes they'd play it 2 times, 3 times, etc. The problem is that no 2 groups can be playing the same thing at the same time because of equipment constraints, etc. So we had some office staff at the camp where every week they would have to go and create a schedule that looks something like this. For every single one of the groups, depending on how many there were, they have to fill in all the different activities, and they need to make sure there's no conflicts, so that there's not one group playing, tennis while another one's supposed to be playing tennis. And then they have to do things like move around the lunches, move around when they're swimming. There's just all these different things that are happening pretty much, and it's very difficult to create these schedules because of the number of constraints. So what I did for them is I kind of asked them, let me just delete this here, to explain to me how this system worked. And then I wrote out a program that actually went and generated these schedules for them. So this is what the UI of the program looked like. It's super basic, but the idea is you can go in and you can select what period the lunch and the swim is going to be for all of the different groups. And then you put in the number of groups and then any of the activities. Now, some weeks, maybe soccer's not available or basketball's not available or whatever. So you deselect those, right? And then you can choose what week you want to generate it for. So maybe this is week 2. And I can put in something like 6 groups, hit generate schedule, and then what it will do is automatically generate a schedule that has no conflictions that they can then go review, edit, modify, and use. Now this saved them literally hours of work every single week, because before they literally had like sticky notes out pretty much, and they had like 8 different sheets which were the mock schedules, and they'd go around and they were like, hey, does group 2 have this, does group 3 have this, and they were manually doing what I wrote this code to do in just a few seconds. So you can see that when I click that, it generates a new schedule here. Now I'm on Windows, so it looks a little bit funky when I open it up, but if I click here, we have the week 2 schedules. And then it gives us a schedule where it's kind of filled in all of the different activities. And yeah, it just made it so that now they don't have to do that. And obviously they can go and modify this, but it saved them a ton of time. They loved it. I loved creating it because it was actually a really useful project. And the way I did this was actually using backtracking as well. It's kind of a fancy algorithm where you can go and you can just check all of the different possible schedules you could create based on a set of constraints. And I actually made this using something called PyQt5, which is a UI library in Python, which is pretty basic, which lets you set up something like this, right? Where we have like all these input boxes, check boxes, etc. So yeah, that's pretty much it for project 4, but wanted to share it with you because this is a real useful project, something that you guys might be able to come up with based on different use cases you have, and actually saved a ton of time and with some pretty valuable software. So we move on to project number 5, but first I do want to share with you that surprise that I promised. Now that is that I recently started a completely free school community. This is a place where you can network with other programmers, you can talk with me, we have some free courses in there that you can watch. There's a bunch of valuable information, completely free, no strings attached. You can join from the link in the description, and that's the surprise that I wanted to share with you. Now that leads me into project number 5, which is a tower defense game built in Python. Now unfortunately, I don't still have access to the source code for that project, but I'll run some videos on this screen so you guys can see what it looked like. Now I coded this out during a 12-hour coding live stream on my channel. It was a lot of fun to make. I personally love games, as you guys can probably tell from this video. I used to always play tower defense games like Balloon Tower Defense 3, 4, 5, etc. So I wanted to make something like that in code in Python, so that's what I did. We had different enemies, we had bosses, we had different health, we had towers that you could upgrade, that you could change the radius for. We had like assisted towers. I had this whole UI library with different assets that looked really, really cool. There was some funky music in the background, and I just had a lot of fun coding this project out. It was also sufficiently difficult, and it was fun to kind of problem solve and figure out, okay, how are we going to move the enemies? How are the towers going to look like they're animated and not attacking each other? And there's a lot of fun challenges and just a really cool project to make. So that, guys, is gonna wrap up this video. I know a lot of these projects are pretty simple, but I just wanted to share with you 5 really fun projects that personally were my favorite. Now, as I said, these are not the best projects I've ever made. They're not necessarily ones I would put on my resume, but I just really enjoyed them. They're ones that I did purely because I wanted to do them and not because I was trying to grind some project or learn data structures and algorithms. They were just fun, they were useful, and that's what really got my passion going in coding, and I want to encourage you to do the same thing. So let me know the projects that you guys are working on in the comments down below. Make sure you join that free school community, and I will see you in another YouTube video.